My co-authors here are Dr. Merlyn, who is now the Assistant Secretary for DNR, and then Dr. Paningatan, who is a retired professor of UPLB, Professor Bato from the Department of Agronomy, and Irene Anandal, our research assistant. So, as a background, this is a part of a big project funded by SNAP Magat, which is corporate venture between SN Norway and Aboitiz Power. That's why it's called SNAP, Magat SNAP Philippines. In 2004, JICA funded a study which produced the Magat watershed plan, but out of that, the Aboitiz Power would like to identify further which are the erosion hotspots in the watershed that feeds into the Magat River. As we all know, Magat is the where they depend on power. And the area of the watershed is about 400,000 hectares, so you can imagine the size of the watershed. And out of that, in 2004, they identified 1,000 hectares which are eroded. So it's still quite huge. So in 2014, Aboitiz Power commissioned Madicor to conduct a study to further identify erosion hotspots in the Ifugao area. And the project was able to identify 24,000 hectares, which is the site for this particular study. So, as we all know and as defined in the literature, erosion causes the loss of soil from land surfaces, and because of that, productivity is affected of all natural ecosystems according to Pimentel. And it was projected that 25 years from 1989 that there will be a 30% reduction in world food production. And this will contribute to loss of income and supposed to be higher poverty incidence. So the objectives of the study is to determine the interaction of erosion, incidence of poverty and food security in the province of Ifugao. Specifically, I will be presenting to you who are the Ayangan and the Tuwali by zone. We grouped our study site into 3 zones. Analyze the different dimensions of poverty by zone, determine the relationship between poverty, extent of erosion, and rice productivity, and recommend policies to alleviate poverty while arresting the incidence of erosion in the 3 zones. So the conceptual framework that we used here is that of the DPSIR, or the Driving Forces, Pressure, State, Impact, and Response, which we adopted from the EEA, published in 1999. So what is the, for the driving forces, we concentrated on the population. The rapid growth of population is believed to cause to consumption of resources, which will have an impact on the ability of our natural resources to produce what is needed by the population. So it will have an impact on the use of water, for example, also on the ability to produce more crops, and so it will affect the state that it will contribute to land conversion, okay? And also forest degradation and increase in grassland areas, and the impact will be declining economic opportunities for the people. And so there will be a response from the government to respond to the increasing poverty. And as an example of this is the National Greening Program of the Philippines. It is implemented in all over the Philippines, and I think it will be until 2021. It's a big project of the government. There are also other projects that can help to alleviate poverty in the rural areas. Well, you have the Sustainable Livelihood Project of the Department of Social Welfare and Development, and the other one is the big project of the Philippines, which is the 4 Ps. So these also contribute to alleviating poverty in the rural areas. So for this study, as I mentioned earlier, we conducted this in Ifugao, but not the rest, not the whole of Ifugao, the province of Ifugao. We worked in 4 municipalities of Hongduan, Hingyon, Banawe, and Mayoyao. So these are the 4 municipalities which we have studied, and if you see from here, this is our study site, which we grouped into 3 zones. And so one zone can occupy more than 1 municipality. Okay? And this is how we divided the zones into 3. Zone 1 is the most denuded area, or the upper limit sub-watershed. This is the upper limit sub-watershed. Zone 2 is moderately denuded, which is Zone 2, the lower limit sub-watershed, and Zone 3, which is the least denuded area, and this is where Banawe is located. The Banawe rice terraces is located. I'll show you some evidence of denudation in the project site. So you have here burn steep slopes being used for crop cultivation. This is also land cover flash and burn, or the Ayangan system of crop cultivation. The construction of road is also can cause erosion, as we can see from here, because right now there is an ongoing road construction between Banawe and that will connect Banawe-Mayoyao to Isabela, which is about 100 hectares. And imagine the effect of blasting of the mountainside to give way for the new, and this is a national road. There is also the very thin land cover. The total and denuded area by zone is this one. For Zone 1, it's 7,900 hectares, and 58% of which is denuded. Zone 2, 42%, and Zone 3 is only about 13% of 1,000 of the 7,000 hectares identified by Dr. Paningbatan as the hotspots, erosion hotspots. So from here, I'll be presenting to you, for the sources of data, I use a combination of sources. We were lucky that there was this community-based monitoring system, although it was conducted in 2012. So this is a census of the different, down to the situ level. The data you can access, you can have data down to the situ level. Also, we have used socioeconomic and annual reports. We also conducted a socioeconomic survey of 416 respondents. We also conducted focus group discussions, and we conducted validation workshops in each of the zones. So what did we find? So from the National Statistics Office, or the Philippine Statistics Authority now, we got this data. Total population is listed in Zone 1 with 53 persons per square kilometer, so that is the population density. But the most densely area is Zone 3 with 189 per square kilometer, or more than 3 times of the population density in Zone 1. Remember that Zone 1 is the most denuded area. This is counterintuitive, isn't it? Because it has the least number of population compared to Zone 3, which has 23,286 in there. The main reason why Zone 3 is thickly populated is because of Banawe. So it's really more of in-out migration from the neighboring areas to Banawe, and I'll explain it more later. The average household size is almost similar to the Philippines, which is about 5 per family. The population is also engaged in agriculture, 95% in Zone 1, Zone 2 is 94%, and Zone 3 is about 61%. As we expect, fishing is least engaged by this, the Ayangan and the Tuwali. Okay. Livestock is popular in Zone 1 and Zone 2. I'd like to point out that Zone 1 really relies heavily on agriculture. In terms of ownership, land ownership, it's highest in Zone 2 and lowest in Zone 3. For Zone 1, it's about 77%. Shared tenancy still exists, although the law provides that there should be shared tenancy, but still exists in the area. The average rice farm size is very small. It's only about 0.6 hectare in Zone 1 and Zone 3 in Zone 3 it's about 0.51 and Zone 2 is 1.63. For the Philippines, the average farm size is less than a hectare. So this is even less when you compare it with the national figure. Cropping system. They practice monocropping. This is understandable, particularly in this area, this one, because they plant rice in the rice terraces. Mayoyo has a number of rice terraces where they do plant the traditional rice called, can you remember? The rice variety in Ifugao. It escapes me, but maybe later I can remember it. But it's being exported now. And the Department of Agriculture is helping the Mountain Province to increase the production of tinawon rice. Okay. The crops planted, as you can see from here, is rice. Especially for Zone 1, less for Zone 2, and the other one is Zone 3 is about 84.4% of them were planting rice. So you can see from here, Zone 1 relies heavily on planting rice. And during the focus group discussions, we were informed that they never sell the rice. It's only for home consumption. And for some residents, it is not even enough. So they had to buy rice from other nearby municipalities. In Zone 2, you can note that there are other crops being planted. They treasure the betel nut, because betel nut becomes very expensive during the lean months. A can of betel nut would cost them about 1,200 pesos per can, because of their cultural practice that they chew betel nut. So it becomes very expensive. So they tried planting betel nut, but it takes time to harvest the betel nut. Okay. So what were their problems with regards to crop production? They complained of pests and diseases in Zone 1. Maybe you've heard of the problem of the worm, the giant worm that attacked the rice terraces. They were not only complaining of the big worms, but also the small worms. And because of these worms, this led to the destruction of the rice terraces. When we asked them why did it happen, and also one of the reports from the College of Forestry, they said that the wall of the rice terraces crumbled because the farmers tried to plant vegetable after planting rice. But you need to remove the water, so you'd have to dry the rice terraces, and because of that, then the wall crumbles. And so that's the reason why some of the farmers can no longer plant rice, because rice needs water. And by the way, tinawon requires 6 months. So it's only planted for one cropping season in a year. The other problems, well, in Zone 2, it's about the lack of capital. But if you see here, for lack of capital, we asked the farmers, why don't you consider lack of capital as a problem? It's only about less than 10% of the farmers. And they said that since they do not use fertilizer or inorganic inputs, they don't have to need to borrow capital. And their production is for home consumption. Even if they want to sell their produce, if they have extra produce, it would not be possible because they had to walk so many number of hours before they can reach the town site where they can sell their produce. So if you go to the market, what you can see there are the beans, dried beans. The most common vegetable was squash, and that's it. So those are the crops being sold, root crops, some root crops being sold in the market, especially of Mayoyo. And so, that's the reason why in Zone 1, they cited here poor farm-to-market produce, their marketing problem. If you combine this with distance to market, that's more than 90%. And that will validate the earlier explanation given by the farmers wherein they do not need to produce more because the problem is marketing. You see in Zone 3, which is Banawe, which is very close to, which is really the urban area, they don't have any problem about marketing, but their problem is this one, the low price of their produce. So they have different problems. Then we look at the source of income, and if you see from here, in Zone 1, they have the lowest annual income of 58,789 compared with 172,592 of Zone 3. Okay? And this, the income which provided them the highest is the non-farm activities. So these are selling into business, not related to agriculture. If you compare this with the poverty threshold of the Philippines, both these income are below the poverty threshold for the year 2012. Because if you divide this income by 5, or the per capita poverty threshold, you'll have only about 9,900 pesos. And the computed per capita poverty threshold for the whole of Ifugao is about 20,000. So they have less, half than what is required to get out of poverty. Okay? So this one is almost about 18,000 per capita. This one is more than 20,000. So in Zone 3, their income is much less, more than what the poverty threshold is. The higher income in Zone 3 can be explained by this non-farm income by zone, the source of income by non-farm zone. If you see from here, they have the production worker, they have also about the professionals and other sources of non-farm income compared to this one. Okay. So if you I look at the CBMS data and look at the different dimensions of poverty, and if you look at here, it is consistent that Zone 1 has the highest households with income below poverty threshold is about 75%. 63% has income below food threshold, meaning they don't have enough money to buy for the food needs or what we require, 1,800 calories per day. And then the CBMS data also asks households who experienced food shortage during the past 3 months, and the highest percentage is about 1.71% of them compared to only 0.45 for Zone 2 and 0.16 in Zone 3. So this points out that where the area is most denuded, poverty incidence is highest no matter how you measure it. In our survey, we also asked them the perceived quality of life of the respondents, and this one also is also consistent with the previous measures of poverty. So this is their perception. In a scale of 1 to 10, most of the respondents in Zone 1 can be located here. 10 is the highest, and so many of the respondents were on 2, 3, and 4 scales. So what the message I'm trying to say here is that no matter or what the measure you adopt in measuring poverty, it points out to the fact that Zone 1 has the highest incidence of poverty. So if you combine all of this information, you'll see that where the area is most denuded, percent of population is highest engaged in agriculture, percent households below the poverty threshold, and percent of households below the food threshold is highest in the most denuded area and lowest in Zone 3, where there is this denudation. What was the explanation offered by some of the authors? They're saying that because the poor people, they do not have other sources of income, so the tendency for them is really to rely on the denuded areas for their own existence. So despite the fact that they don't have, the area is not very productive due to denudation and due to occurrence of erosion. They don't have anywhere else to depend on for their existence. And so, the conclusion is that Zone 1 is the most denuded among the 3 zones. They mostly depend on agriculture. Very few small non-agricultural economic opportunities present in the zone, and the average farm size is small. Although I did not present earlier, but also they have the lowest yield of about 67.72 kabans per hectare, compared to other areas where in Zone 2 it's about 88 kabans per hectare. And as I said earlier, Zone 1 is the poorest among the 3 zones. Zone 3 is the least poor based on the average annual income, incidence and dimensions of poverty, and the perceptions of the quality of life, perceptions of the households on the quality of life. It has the highest number of population, but have more options for economic activities. What we're saying here is, population is highest in Zone 3, however, they have other sources of income aside from agriculture. They really do not have to depend on agriculture, because we know Banawe is a tourist area. So tourism is one big source of income. Hinyon, or where the other zone is, Zone 2, now they're having problems about their livelihood because they're running out of woods being used for wood carving. Wood carving is one of the economic activities in Zone 2. Unfortunately, they're running out of wood for their wood carving activities. So what are the recommendations? We know that these zones have different problems. So the recommendations are also, should also vary. For Zone 1, urgent is the livelihood opportunities. What can be done to help them increase their income so that they won't rely so much on agriculture? And the recommendation here is that to arrest erosion, SNAP-MAGAT should have infrastructure projects such as the building of canals, so that while the people are planting crops or planting trees or fruit trees, they still have other sources of income from the labor out of these infrastructure projects of Aboitiz power. For zones 2 and 3, so that it will not reach the stage which is being experienced by Zone 1, there should be environmental programs. The priority should be on how to arrest further occurrence of erosion and denudation in the area. Okay, and so that's it for my presentation. The other recommendation is there is a need to slow down the rate of population growth because it is rapid. Because as I presented to you earlier, the population growth rate of Zone 3 is 2.48, which is higher than the national average. Right now, the national average is less. In 2012, it's about 1.91 compared to 2.48. So it's there is a rapid growth of population. And would like to acknowledge the study was conducted by Madicor, and my presentation is just part of it. I also again would like to thank SEARCA for sponsoring my attendance to the 4th Asia Future Conference in Kitakyushu, Japan, and also for UPLB for allowing me also to attend the conference. And thank you very much.